everybody. Welcome back to Event About It, the Dynamic Dialogue After Show. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and I'm here today with Johnnie White. And before we get into it, let's remind our audience on who he is. So Johnny's the CEO of the American Association of Clinical Endocrinology, has more than 30 years serving a variety in management and leadership roles across associations. He's also served as an adjunct faculty member at Georgetown University and Northern Virginia Community College, holds an MBA from the University of Maryland, University College, go Terps, also from Maryland. He serves as board member of the American Society of Association Executives and was the past chairman board of PCMA, Professional Convention Management Association, received numerous awards, recognitions for your association work. I mean, my gosh, could you be more accomplished? So many wonderful things. All right, so first off the bat, have you ever faked a line or networking conversation so that you could hit the snack table or go to the bar?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There have been a time where, I'm in a conversation and let's say the conversation wasn't going in the right direction, and I'm like, all right, let me figure out how I'm going to get out of this. And so, I would always use the line of, I see a colleague over there. I need to go talk to him, and I'll go over there. So that's something that I probably have done. And I will say there is something else that I would do, and I'm doing it more than I probably did when I was younger. I'm not staying up as late as I used to, and so I would do that line where, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and people who know who I am know that that's my time that I'm going back to.
That's your Irish goodbye cue of like,
yes.
I'm out. I'm done with this.
Yes.
This day.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so wearing your CEO hat, what information from the education and events team matter most to you now? So what data, what analytics do they need to show up for that are impactful from a C-suite level?
What I'm looking for my meetings and education team is data that's related to financials and analytics on attendance. And the analytics I'm looking at is something that's comparing where we are today to where we were last year and maybe a few years beyond that. Because what I'm trying to do is look at some trends, look at some forecasting to help me understand, where we may end up being at the end of the day. So my team now, they give us a weekly report, and this weekly report is kind of providing the financials, again, where we are today. But then behind this information, there's data that's showing the last 4 years. So I could compare, again, where we are today to those last 4 years. And then I could do some type of trend analysis to see, if we're, let's see, 4 weeks out, look at 4 weeks out over the last few years to see what the average was in terms of how many people are going to be maybe still registering. And then it helps me determine forecasting what we may see at the end of the day. So those are the kind of things I'm looking at from an analytical standpoint.
I love that. Has that changed from when you were on the planner side? Like, were you thinking that way when you were running these event programs, or were you interested in different types of analytics and data?
Yeah, I think when I was on the planner side, yes, I was doing that same thing because we're always trying to forecast to ensure we have enough resources for the activity when it happens. So I was always just programmed to do that from the beginning. And from a background standpoint, I'm always into data. I have a computer science degree, so was always into data and trying to analyze the data. So I think I've just taken that throughout my career when I do anything.
So your advice to planners would be showing up with financial, not just how many people, but where it is in comparison, finding those trends, not just maybe the budget for the meeting, but how that budget then looks at the whole organization.
Absolutely. It goes back to telling the story, giving the full story. I mean, we all like stories. So I don't just want one component of the story. I want all of the story so that it helps me understand it better.
Where do events play a role in the larger organizational structure? Because as an association and even in the corporate world, events are just a piece of the puzzle. Are they a large piece of the puzzle for you? Where do events play into your overall strategy for your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most associations, the meetings plays a large component of the entirety of that organization for multiple reasons. From a financial standpoint, because I think on average, and it depends on the organization, but it could be 50 to 70% of the total budget. So that's the financial component of it. And it also is the opportunity for the organization to show all that it's doing to its members and non-members. So it's a recruiting scenario, because if the non-members see all these different things that are happening with the organization, hopefully they will join the organization. So it's a marketing tool for the organization, and that marketing tool is marketing not just education that the organization doing, but all the other components. Like, if you have a publication, you're highlighting that. If you have different initiatives that you're doing, you highlight that. If you're doing things that's related to advocacy, you're highlighting that. So it's a great tool in terms of getting in front of your audience, and this is members or non-members, and giving them details about that organization. So it's for associations. It is the one of the number one products that the organization has in order to get information out to the community.
That's a fun question, kind of shifting gears a little bit. What's something people think CEOs spend a lot of their time on, but you actually don't? So prior to being in the C-suite role, what is something you were like, oh, I bet the CEO does this all day. And now you're there and you don't do it at all.
They think CEOs out playing golf all the time. That doesn't happen. Now, granted, I do play golf, but I'm not playing golf all the time. I don't have time.
I understand that.
And I guess another thing I think that people think CEOs do all the time is they go on these great trips. CEOs do travel. They have to get out and see their members, go to different meetings and so forth. But just like in the meeting side, you'll go into that city, and the only thing you're seeing is four walls, because you go into the hotel, you go into the meeting room. You may get out to dinner, so you might, be able to walk outside, get some fresh air. But the next day, you're back in that all those four walls. So I think that's the other thing that people, see in the CEOs, like, oh, they're going on these great trips. They're going all over the place. Those trips are not that great because you're working. You're working from morning until the evening, because not only are you doing these meetings, you still got to run the organization. So you have to keep up with your emails. You still have to continue to have other meetings. I mean, there's multiple times where I'm at a conference or a meeting, but I'm still having virtual calls with individuals and so forth. So I'm double duty. I'm doing what I can do with the meeting, but I'm also still running the organization.
Absolutely. And I say all the time as the joke, like, I've been to a lot of places and I've seen very few of them, because once we get there, we're in those four walls and you don't really get to see a lot of the cities or experience these cities. And it's the blessing and curse of what we get to do. We get to travel and see a little bit. We get the highlight reel, but we don't really get to experience a lot when we're traveling for a lot of these shows.
Exactly.
What's something you wish CEOs knew more about events and vice versa? I mean, obviously you have a different perspective coming from the event world and the impact they have on the organization, but most CEOs, especially in the association world, don't come from events. Definitely in the corporate world, you don't see event people going to CEO of a major for-profit organization. So what's something you wish they would know about each other's roles, and what's something they could probably learn from each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think CEOs are doing a better job now because, again, they understand the importance of meetings. But there's still some organizations that don't see that. And so I would say for CEOs that they do a better job of ensuring that they have the meetings, whoever's running the meetings department has a seat at the table, at your C-suite table, because again, it's such a important part of your organization. You want to make sure that you have a good tie with whoever's running that component of your organization. Because if you don't, then you're going to lose sight of a lot of things that's going on with the organization. Because again, as I stated earlier about all the positive things about that program, I mean, the meetings that you have, financials, marketing, and so forth. And if you don't have a good understanding of that, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of the things that you can do with that product that you have. So just making sure that you have whoever's responsible for the meetings component has a seat at your table.
And when you get the seat at the table, planners, don't show up with food and beverage recommendations, show up with
Yes,
financials and stories about the, data and how it's impacting the organization. That's always
exactly.
been my vent. COVID was a blessing and a curse for so many event people because I feel like they finally got the seat at the table and then they showed up with operations and not strategy and business and like, here's why we need to do these things to accomplish these goals. And I was just like, man, you're not going to get invited back if you show up with that.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. During the COVID, everybody started paying attention to events because they were going away.
Yeah.
So the everyone that was in leadership, not even the CEO, but all the other executives were starting to get their hands into the meetings component. And if you were not a strong event organizer, they were sort of taking over your area. And so with that said, I think event organizers, if they haven't learned, they should have learned that they need to ensure that they are showing the knowledge that they have. And if they don't have that knowledge, then they need to go out and get that knowledge, through all the different programs, getting a certification, CMP, or the other certifications that are out
The
there that
CMM,
will give,
CEM, all
thank
the
you,
alphabet
yes,
soups that are out
alphabet
there.
soup of different things, because that's going to help you as you are defending what you're doing. Because I think what happened in the pandemic, there were a lot of questioning of what you were doing and asking were you doing the right thing. And if you had the knowledge, you were able to defend it. If you didn't, you need to go get it.
Yeah, I love that. That kind of goes into my next question of how do you then balance long-term vision with day-to-day operations, and how do you start shifting that mindset from an operational perspective to that long-term strategy? This event today impacts the organization tomorrow.
Event organizers, I mean, they're always looking at what's happening today because that's the program that they're working on today, and they want to make sure that is going to be successful. So you should continue doing that because you want to make sure that that's going to work. But you also should always be looking at the future and what's happening in the future and how it's going to affect what you're doing today. There's so many different tools out here now that's going to change the way we're seeing events in the future, from AI, for example, that's going to change a lot of things that we're doing. The makeup of our attendees, we have a new generation that's coming in, and they are going to absorb education very differently than what our generation is today. We talk about bite size. I mean, they're really, really bite sized in terms of the education they want. So you, as an event organizer, have to know what the future is so you can start planning for what that future is, what's going to come out of that future. So you got to have a pulse on the trends that you're seeing for the future, so you can start baby steps. You don't want to automatically just switch your program right away, because then that's going to alienate the audience that you have today. So you're going to have to start incorporating some of these things slowly throughout the years, so that you're not alienating those that are part of your organization, but you're starting to attract those other individuals that you don't have today.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of why sometimes event roles can get so challenging is you have to know a lot about of everything. So what you're talking about now resonates with me from a changed behavior sort of science. And I do a lot of social science reading and I read a lot of things outside of our industry because at the end of the day, people are coming to these meetings to learn something or do something different. And so how do we change that behavior? How do we
Right.
get them to do the things we want them to do when they come to the meeting, whether that's buy a product, sign a membership, join the advocacy, it could be a number of different things. Change behavior, as we know, is very challenging, especially in adults. It's very hard to do. And so
Yeah.
you have to read and kind of help people see around the corner of like, this is what's coming and we're here to help you get there.
You bring up a good point. You as an event organizer, you should be open to looking at different sectors. So I'm in medical, and I've been in medical pretty much my entire career. I did take a step out and ran another organization, but don't be afraid to look at other sectors like the IT sector or other divisions. I mean, a couple of things that I used to do when I ran the Cardiology Association. every now and then I would go to the Consumer Electronics Show that was in January because I wanted to see what the trends are from a technology standpoint and see how I can incorporate that into our programs. And then I would take myself and one of our staff members over to Europe and go to a Europe program because they do things very differently than what we do here in the U.S. So I was looking at all these different sectors to see, how I can learn from them and then be able to incorporate it into what we were doing.
All right, shifting gears just a little bit. So I was part of and loved the Association for Executive Women or Women in Events. I forget the actual acronym, AWE. And you were one of the sole male members of that on the board. Why did you want to be a part of that? I mean, why are you in an industry that's full of women? I don't even know the statistics. It's probably 80% women in the events world. And
Right.
so why join that organization? Why be so involved? I mean, it's very admirable. And I think people really loved your intake and very inspiring messages you always brought to some of those meetings. But how was that experience for you being one of the only men in this association for women?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was amazing to be part of the organization. It was the Association for Women in Events,
There it
AWE.
is. Yeah.
And so it was amazing to be part of this organization because it fit, what I saw as a gap in this industry. And that is, if you look at, a lot of the event industry companies or, if you look at associations, a lot of the women are handling a lot of the events, but they weren't at the top of the food chain. There was a gap there from again owning an event organization, or if you're at association, again, they're not at the C-suite, not at the table. And so because of that, I thought with this organization and me being involved with this organization, I can help and make a good change there. A number of things that this organization was doing was providing mentorship, education, networking opportunities, so that women were exposed to some of the things that they're not exposed to now to help them move up the ladder. So it was something that I was passionate about because I saw it throughout my career when it came down to women in terms of where they were placed in this industry. And so with this organization, the plan was to change that story and help women move up the ladder to where they should be instead of below the ladder. And then, the other thing, as we all see, which is still in place today, the gap with salary. Let's say, the woman has the same role as a man, but their pay could be, 20, 30, 40% difference between the two. And they're doing the same thing. So that was the other thing that we wanted to do in terms of changing that story there in reference to how they were getting paid compared to others.
It was such a great organization. The pandemic unfortunately kind of squashed it a little bit, but hopefully
Yeah,
one day we'll be able to bring that back and get it, reinvigorated because it was
let's
it
hope
was
so.
a great group.
Yeah, I think, but I will say that organization inspired a lot of the other organizations out there. I mean, you're
It did.
seeing, IAE, ASAE, doing programs that are specifically for women now, which follows the same goals that we were trying to do. Trying to provide the resources for women to help them in getting up that ladder.
Yeah, I loved it. All right, last question as we're wrapping up. What's a failure or a tough lesson from your career that you're oddly grateful for now?
I'll share a story. So I was running a cardiology association, and we were very, very innovative. And we had a lot of money too. So it's great to have the combination of the two, so you can do a lot of different things. And years ago, this was a time where meeting apps were out for maybe a couple of years, but we as an organization felt that the behavior of the meeting app wasn't to what we wanted it to be, because when you did it on different platforms, so you either had the Android one or you had the Apple one, and we were finding that on both platforms it was doing different things. So we decided, instead of continuing to take this app and sending out to our attendees, and again they're having different experiences because they're on different platforms, we decided to go purchase our own device and give it to every attendee. Now we're talking a conference of 12,000 people. So we went out and bought 10,000 tablets from Samsung, directly from Samsung. So we made a deal with
Holy cow.
the leadership in Korea and had them ship all the tablets to Dallas. And then we had all of our apps installed on each of those tablets. And then
what an undertaking, my gosh. Oh, Lord.
and then we shipped all those tablets to San Francisco, because that's where we had our conference. So there's a lot of, and
that's a lot of logistics, my goodness.
Yes. And there's a lot of details to those logistics. A lot of things we had, a lot of hoops that we had to get through in order to get to that point. But we were successful in having that tablet, and every attendee received a tablet, and every attendee was appreciative. I mean, they was like, oh my God, we're going to this conference and I get my own device, and they get to keep it. We weren't telling them to bring it back to us, keep it, because our goal was that now that they have this device, we will continue to feed education to them, so they can always have access to our content. So
I like this
strategy. Sounds like a great idea. Yes, sounds like a great idea. And
I'm guessing it didn't turn out to be such a great idea.
Well, no, it was. Initially it was a great idea, and then 6 months later, Samsung comes out with a newer version of a tablet. So you got to think of technology.
Yep. People are selling your cardiology tablets. That's hilarious. I mean, full circle moment for me. When I bought my house 4 years ago, we were going through some things that they had left in the basement, and I actually found a bag from a cardiology conference in 1985, I think it was.
Oh, wow. Well, I was going to say, did you find my tablet?
I didn't find your tablet, but I did buy my house from a former cardiology surgeon here in Montana, and I found one of his conference bags. I don't why he kept this bag for as long as he did. I would love to know the answer, but it was very interesting to find this conference bag in a house of two conference producers. It was kind of a full circle moment.
Our physicians, they love meeting bags. And it's a quick story, again, going back to this cardiology association. We always wanted to do something different. So when it came down to the meeting bag, we had multiple meetings about that meeting bag, because we were designing it ourselves, like down to what the zipper looked like, to the hinges. I mean, they would send, pieces each time. We were like, oh, we need to do this, or change the color of this, and that sort of thing. So I just share that story that, as you talked about cardiologists, this across the board physicians, they just love those meeting bags. Then I think it's different now, because, we're being more environmental, and, we're not trying to have all these bags and so forth. So, but then it was a big deal.
I mean, I still use it. I tried to give it back to his wife and said, oh, I found this, in the house. I didn't know if you wanted to keep it or whatever. And she was like, no, we have thousands of those bags. I don't need any more conference bags.
See, there you go. They love those bags.
So I was like, okay, so now I go grocery shopping with it sometimes. It's funny. It's a great bag.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an incredible dialogue. So many great nuggets for planners to think about, especially as they're, moving up that ladder, trying to get to the C-suite level, and just moving from that operational focus to more strategic thinking. And that's what we're trying to do here at Event About It, is have fun, but also, elevate our industry and our roles, and, show and highlight the importance of all the events and the impact they have on organizations.
Great. Well, I'm happy that I was able to participate, and I hope your audience learns some stuff.
I'm sure they will. Well, thank you. And until next time, we'll see you then.